The Seattle rain came down like a curtain, cold and unrelenting, washing the city in grays and silvers. Pedestrians hurried beneath umbrellas or ducked under overhangs, boots splashing through puddles that reflected flickers of neon on the curb. Outside his glass and steel high-rise, Maxwell Donovan stepped out of his Tesla, the automatic door whispering shut behind him. Raindrops pattered against his charcoal wool coat, but he made no move to shield himself. His Italian leather shoes darkened instantly, ruined for the day, but he didn't notice. The rain in Seattle was as constant as the breath in his lungs. Background noise, expected, endured. "Sir, your meeting with the board is in 30 minutes. Came the crisp voice in his earpiece, his assistant's tone clipped with efficiency. "I'll be there," Maxwell replied, swiping away the alert from his smartwatch without breaking stride. He needed coffee, real coffee, not the overly frothed, flavorless sludge served in the boardroom upstairs. Something local, strong, human. He turned the corner, the familiar rhythm of the city drawing him forward. On this stretch of brick-lined street, tucked between a closed bookstore and a florist shuttered for renovations, was his favorite cafe. But today, the storefront was dark, a handwritten sign taped to the glass read "Closed for maintenance. Back tomorrow." Maxwell exhaled, about to pivot back toward the corporate elevator, waiting to whisk him away, when something caught his eye. The figures huddled beneath the awning of the bookstore next door, soaked but unmoving. Children. He stopped. The girls, identical, sat close together on the damp concrete, 8, maybe 9 years old. They wore threadbare jackets, water seeping through the sleeves. Their tangled copper hair clung to their cheeks and foreheads in dripping curls. One held a battered teddy bear with only one eye. The other clutched a folded paper sign smeared with water. "Spare change for medicine, please." Their faces tilted up as he approached, and something in Maxwell's chest wrenched violently. Those eyes, that shade and impossible, haunted amber green, a color he'd seen only once in his life, in the eyes of a girl who'd promised to wait for him when he left for college. A girl whose letters stopped coming. A girl whose parents said she'd moved away. Elizabeth. The name hit him like a breath. Stolen in winter. He stared, his polished exterior momentarily crumbling as time folded in on itself. He saw her, not the girls, but her, Elizabeth Winters, at 17, laughing beneath a blooming dogwood tree, whispering secrets into his ear, promising forever. "Spare change, mister?" the girl on the left asked, her voice soft but steady. Her hand trembled slightly as she held it out. "For our mom's medicine," the other added, eyes wide, lips stained blue from the cold. Maxwell couldn't speak. His pulse thundered. He lowered himself slowly to their level, ignoring the wet concrete soaking through his slacks, ignoring the voice in his head reminding him who he was and what time it was. Where's your mother?" he asked, throat tight. "In the hospital," the first girl replied, pronouncing it with a soft S. "She's real sick," the other whispered, the teddy bear clutched tighter to her chest. "Cancer," the first one finished, the word foreign and heavy in her young mouth. Maxwell swayed slightly. The street around him fell silent, as if even the rain paused to listen. He swallowed. "What's your mother's name?" The girls exchanged a glance, that eerie twin telepathy glimmering between them. "Elizabeth," they said in perfect unison. The name tore through him like a bullet wrapped in memory. His hands trembled. His world tilted. It couldn't be. Not after all this time. Not her. "My name is Maxwell," he said softly, as if it might mean something. Can you take me to her?" The taxi pulled away from the curb in silence, its windshield wipers clicking steadily like a ticking clock counting down to something inevitable. Maxwell sat in the back seat, with the girls on either side of him, their small shoulders damp against the crisp linen of his shirt. He could still feel the rain seeping into the fabric, but he no longer noticed. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one rising within him. Lucy, he'd learned her name as she corrected the driver, with quiet authority stared out the window, eyes scanning the blurred streets like a child with responsibilities. The big for her age, Lily clutched her one-eyed teddy bear tighter, her legs swinging nervously above the floorboard. They were calm, composed even, but not in the way children should be. They carried the kind of stillness born of waiting to long for help that never came. "We're not supposed to go with strangers," Lucy said suddenly, eyes not leaving the rain-smeared glass. Maxwell turned slightly toward her. "You're right," he said softly. "That's smart. Are you a stranger?" Lily asked, her voice small but searching. He opened his mouth to answer and then stopped. What could he say? Yes, no. Once, I loved your grandmother. Once, I was supposed to be someone who mattered. I might be someone your mother knew a long time ago, he said finally, choosing the truth he could claim. If she's the Elizabeth the First, remember. Lily's fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve. She's in room 412, she said quietly. At Seattle Grace. Sometimes, she talks to herself, Lucy added, or to someone who's not there. I think it's Mom. I think she sees her. That made Maxwell's stomach twist. Where's your father? He asked carefully. The girls fell silent. After a moment, Lucy said, they died, Mom and Dad, last year, a car crash. Coming home from work, Maxwell's breath hitched. Your mom, what was her name? Charlotte, Lily whispered. The taxi hit a pothole and Maxwell jolted forward. But it wasn't the jolt that made his vision blur, it was the name. Charlotte, a name he hadn't heard, hadn't known he should have heard. His voice cracked. Charlotte, was your mother? The girls nodded in unison. Charlotte, Elizabeth's daughter. And Elizabeth had never told him she was pregnant. The taxi pulled up to the curb outside Seattle Grace. Everything after that became a blur of sliding glass doors, antiseptic air, and fluorescent lighting that buzzed with too much brightness. The world felt unreal, as though it had been knocked off its axis and now spun in some unfamiliar direction. Room 412. He found it at the end of a long corridor that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and despair. Through the small window in the door, he saw her, thinner, paler, her once vibrant hair now a muted crown of copper against the white pillow. But it was her. Elizabeth. 30 years vanished in a blink. She looked like someone made of fading light and stubbornness. A woman who had fought too long and too hard for things she never should have had to fight for. A doctor stepped out of the room, clipboard in hand. Excuse me, Maxwell said. I'm an old friend of Elizabeth Winters. How is she? The doctor looked him over, weighing the question. Are you family? No, but I'm sorry. I can only share her condition with immediate family. Before Maxwell could protest, Lucy tugged on his sleeve. She's gonna die, she said bluntly, her voice more numb than sad. That's what the doctor told her. She said maybe 3 months. Lily added, but she looks like she's running out faster. Maxwell blinked hard, nodding. Thank you, he said to the girls. The doctor was already walking away, but Maxwell called out, wait, I want to help. Whatever it takes, treatments, specialists, anything. Money is not an issue. The doctor turned, studying him more carefully now. Perhaps we should talk in my office, Mr. Donovan, he said. Maxwell Donovan. Something in the doctor's expression shifted. Recognition, respect, maybe pity. 10 minutes later, Maxwell sat in a beige office surrounded by diplomas and plastic models of organs. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. Elizabeth has staged for pancreatic cancer. He said, it's spread to her liver. We've exhausted standard treatments. She declined rapidly over the past month. What about experimental programs, trials? I'll fund a wing of this hospital if I have to. She's been rejected from 3. Her condition is too advanced. Maxwell's hands curled into fists on the armrest of the chair. She has weeks, the doctor said, not unkindly. Maybe 3 months. I'm sorry. Maxwell stood slowly. The room spun slightly, his heart thundering against his ribs. She has granddaughters, children. They can't lose her too. Dr. Reeves nodded. CPS is involved. The girls have no other legal family. No, Maxwell said. That's not true. He didn't wait for permission. He walked out of the office and down the hall. Lucy and Lily sat quietly in the waiting area, side by side, legs swinging just above the floor. They looked up when he approached. He knelt in front of them, his designer suit still damp from the rain. Girls, he said gently, I think Elizabeth was someone very important to me. A long time ago. Lily tilted her head. You look like her when you frown. Maxwell let out a breath that felt more like a gasp. I want to see her, he said. They nodded. He pushed open the door to room 412. The beeping of machines greeted him, and the steady, fragile sound of someone still holding on. Lizzie, he said softly, using a name he hadn't spoken aloud. In 3 decades, her eyelids fluttered, and then she opened her eyes. Max, she whispered. Am I dreaming? No, he said, tears sliding down his face as he took her hand. I'm here. The girls brought me. They found you," she murmured. "Somehow, they found you." Maxwell looked at her, his first love, the mother of a daughter he never knew he had, the grandmother to two girls who just might save his soul. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. Her lips trembled. "I wrote you, Max, dozens of letters, but you never answered." Maxwell closed his eyes. "My parents, they told me you left, that you'd moved away and didn't want to be found." Elizabeth turned her head slowly, the truth dawning in her eyes. "They lied to us both." Outside, the rain poured down, but inside that room, history unraveled in the quiet space between two hands, still clasped after all these years, and a door one long sealed began to creak open. The storm outside hadn't let up, but inside room 412, time had shifted. It no longer moved by minutes and seconds, but by heartbeats and the measured inhale-exhale of a dying woman. Maxwell didn't know how long he sat beside Elizabeth, her hand trembling lightly in his. The machines around them beeped softly, as though timing her life in subtle code, and he hated them for it. "You're really here," she whispered again, eyes misting. "I should have been years ago," Maxwell said, guilt thundering behind every word. She smiled faintly. "I thought you moved on, started a family, had your big life." He hesitated. "I had the big life, not the one that mattered." Her hand tightened in his. "They said you wanted a clean break, that you didn't want to hear from me, that you met someone else." He swallowed hard. "They told me you left. No letter, no goodbye, no forwarding address. My mother said you'd vanished." Elizabeth let out a ragged laugh, half grief, half anger. "I wrote to you for a year, Max. Then one day your mother came to my job, the diner. She was wearing pearls. Told me I was ruining your future. Told me if I kept trying to contact you, she'd make sure you lost everything." Maxwell's heart turned to stone. "She offered me money to disappear," Elizabeth said. "I didn't take it, but I did stop writing, for a while." He leaned forward, voice low. "Did you ever tell me in those letters that you were pregnant?" Elizabeth's eyes glistened. "The first one I ever wrote. Yes, Charlotte. She was everything good, Max. Smart, strong. She looked like you when she concentrated." He let out a shaky breath, pain rising in his chest. "I never even knew her name." "She had your eyes," Elizabeth whispered. "Same fire when she believed in something. She used to say, 'If it doesn't exist, I'll build it.' Just like you." Maxwell stood suddenly. He couldn't sit anymore. He couldn't breathe in a world where he'd had a daughter and never known her, not by fate, but by sabotage, by the very woman who raised him. "You said Charlotte was married?" he asked. Elizabeth nodded, eyes fluttering closed again. "James, good man, programmer. They met at a conference in San Diego, started a company together. Neurosoft, eye diagnostics for rare and aggressive diseases." Maxwell's head whipped around. "Wait, Neurosoft? That was hers." Elizabeth opened her eyes again. "She built it, all of it. She had this idea, a system that could detect pancreatic cancer before symptoms even started. Said it could have saved me." Maxwell's breath caught. The name had been a blip on his radar, one of 1,000 startups that had pitched to Donovan Technologies over the years. He hadn't paid attention. "Just another underfunded dream. She tried to find you, Max," Elizabeth said, her voice turning to gravel. "She found your email, your company. She wrote to you, a letter." Maxwell went still. "When?" he asked. Elizabeth's lips quivered. 2 years ago. The timing struck him like a blade. That was around the time his mother had called, saying a delusional woman claiming to be connected to the family had emailed the company. Margaret had laughed it off. Maxwell had deleted the email without reading it. His knees nearly buckled. "And then," Elizabeth continued, "she ran into your mother at a tech conference in Boston." Maxwell already knew what came next. "She told Charlotte that you got the letter and that you didn't want to meet, that you had a new family, a son, a wife, a better life." Maxwell's hands curled into fists. Rage clean and white hot filled him. "She was devastated," Elizabeth whispered. "But she never told me. I only found out after she died. From her journal." The word died struck him anew. "How did she?" Maxwell's voice broke. Elizabeth's face twisted in pain. A rainstorm, just like today. They were driving back from a meeting with a potential investor, skidded off the highway. Both of them were gone before help arrived. Maxwell stumbled backward and sat down again, everything crashing in on him. His daughter, brilliant, brave, trying to save lives, trying to find him, and believing, in the end, that he didn't want her. Elizabeth reached for something on the nightstand, a key, old and tarnished, on a blue lanyard. "Storage unit," she said. "Everything's there. Charlotte's work, her files, her videos. I couldn't keep it all at the apartment." Maxwell took the key reverently. "I'll take care of it," he said. "I'll take care of the girls. I'll finish what she started." Elizabeth smiled, weak but bright. "That's all I ever wanted." As he stood to leave, her voice stopped him. "Max," he turned. "Beware of Margaret," she whispered. "She already came to see me." He froze. "What did she want?" Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. "She offered money. Again, said she'd give the girls everything. Tutors, boarding school, trust funds. All she wanted was custody." Maxwell's voice dropped to steel. "And you?" "I told her to go to hell," Elizabeth said, her old fire flaring for just a moment. Maxwell stepped into the hallway, his mind burning. The girls were sitting with a nurse, quietly coloring. Lily looked up as he approached. "Is Grandma okay?" He knelt beside them. "She's resting now. But she wanted me to tell you something." Lucy looked up, cautious but hopeful. "She said you're both very brave and very loved, and she asked me to make sure you're safe." The twins looked at each other, then back at him. "Are you going to leave too?" Lily asked. Maxwell didn't hesitate. Double quotes, "No, I'm not going anywhere." Behind them, down the hallway, the elevator dinged open. A familiar figure stepped out. Perfect heels, cold eyes, designer coat pristine even in the storm. Margaret Donovan. Maxwell stood slowly as she spotted him. Her face didn't change. It never did. "We need to talk," she said. His jaw clenched. "You're 30 years too late," he replied, but she only smiled soft, rehearsed. "Dangerous? No, darling," she said. "I'm right on time." And Maxwell understood, in that moment, that the fight for the twins, the real fight, had only just begun. The following morning broke cold and sharp, as if the storm had only paused to catch its breath. Maxwell hadn't slept. The penthouse that once felt sterile and expansive now seemed foreign, haunted by unanswered questions and unrealized fatherhood. He stood in his kitchen, untouched espresso cooling beside him, as the skyline lit up in fractured gold. But all he could see were the little girls asleep down the hall, his granddaughters, his blood. And somewhere in the city, his mother was making her next move. His phone buzzed. "Rachel." He answered on the first ring. "She's filing," Rachel said without preamble. "Margaret, visitation rights petition." And it's not just that her lawyers are drafting a parallel motion for emergency guardianship. Maxwell's jaw clenched. "On what grounds?" "She's calling you emotionally unstable, claims you're unfit, no parenting experience, that you've endangered company assets, missed merger briefings, burned shareholder trust. She has statements from Weiss and of board members. Max, she's building a narrative. Let her," he said flatly. "I'm building a war." He hung up and turned just as Lucy appeared in the doorway, hair mussed, wearing her mother's oversized college sweatshirt like armor. She didn't say good morning, just watched him. "Are we going to the hospital again?" "Yes," he said, "but we need to make one stop first." The law offices of Halverson and King towered above the street, all marble and intimidation. Maxwell walked in with Lucy and Lily on either side, their small hands in his. Receptionists gawked. One attorney dropped his coffee. People recognized him, but no one recognized him like this. He didn't care. Within 10 minutes, he was in a glass conference room with John Bremer, his longtime attorney. "I want emergency guardianship filed today," Maxwell said, placing a thumb drive on the table. "DNA test confirms paternity to Charlotte. Charlotte is deceased. Elizabeth is terminal. The twins have no other legal guardian." Bremer raised an eyebrow. "And you believe the grandmother has ulterior motives?" Maxwell leaned forward, voice cold and measured. "She destroyed my relationship with Elizabeth, hid the existence of my daughter, intercepted a letter from Charlotte, lied to both of them, and now she wants to take what's left of them." Bremer nodded. "We'll fast-track it. And another thing," Maxwell added, "I want a forensic team on my company's servers. Deep scan. I want Alan Weiss's email accounts flagged, backdated. If my mother's behind any recent security breaches, I want proof." Bremer smiled faintly. "You're going scorched earth." "I'm just getting started." Back at the hospital, The scent of antiseptic clung to the air like a warning. Elizabeth was awake, her voice papery thin, but her eyes bright. The twins climbed onto her bed carefully, and she kissed their foreheads with trembling lips. "Max," she said after a while, "you found the unit." "I have the key," he said. "I haven't been yet." She pointed weakly to her hospital bag. "Box, letters, everything I wrote you. Every update, every picture of Charlotte. I couldn't throw them away. I needed you to know." He swallowed hard. "I'll read every word. Also," she whispered, Neurosoft, "Charlotte's work, it's all in the storage. She needed funding, but no one would back her." "I will," he said without hesitation. "Well, finish what she started." Elizabeth smiled, but then winced, her body seizing with a spasm. A nurse rushed in. "She's getting weaker," the nurse said gently. "We'll need to limit visits soon." "I'll be back," he whispered, brushing a lock of hair from her temple. He turned to the girls. "Let's go find your mom's." Legacy, Unit 424 sat at the far end of a nondescript storage facility, its corrugated door echoing as Maxwell rolled it open. The inside was modest. Boxes, bins, a dusty desk. But what was inside those boxes left him breathless. Photos hundreds. Charlotte as a baby, learning to walk. Charlotte in high school, with James. With the twins as infants, she had grown up without him, but her mother had kept everything. One box was labeled Neurosoft Core Files. Maxwell opened it. Blueprints, algorithm sketches, early trials, patent drafts. A marketing deck labeled Project Ember, predicting the fire before the smoke. And at the very bottom, a small external hard drive with a silver fingerprint scanner. A sticky note in Charlotte's handwriting. "If you're seeing this, it means you found me. Don't stop." His throat closed. There were journals too. Dozens. He opened one at random. "Dated 2 years ago. Today I mailed the letter. I told him everything. If he doesn't respond, I'll take it as my answer." Still, part of me hopes maybe he didn't know. Maybe he's not the villain I imagined. He flipped forward, ran into Margaret Donovan today. The Margaret Donovan. I told her who I was. She said she'd give it to him, but her eyes were cold. Something about it felt final. Maxwell dropped the journal, bile rising in his throat. She had intercepted it again. His phone buzzed. "Rachel, double quotes Max," she said breathlessly. "You're going to want to sit down." "I'm already braced." "We found something, deep in Allen. Weiss's comms, hidden server logs, documented patterns of data siphoning, going back 6 years. Internal AI models, medical prototypes, all sold." Maxwell's voice was ice. "Sold to who?" "Private equity firms, competing tech giants, overseas investors, names we've had on NDA blacklists for years." "And my mother?" he asked, though he already knew. "She's copied on a dozen threads, coded language, time payouts. She's not just helping why she's leading him." Maxwell went silent. "There's more," Rachel said. "Charlotte found the breach before she died. Her Neurosoft code flagged anomalies in DT's internal data. She was trying to alert us." Maxwell's chest compressed. "And 3 days later," Rachel said softly, "she and James died." It felt like the room collapsed. A long silence passed. Maxwell spoke with deadly calm. "Have security flag Alan Weiss. Freeze all access. Get that evidence to federal cybercrime. We're going to war. And Margaret," he stared at Charlotte's handwriting, "don't stop. I'll bury her in truth." He said, "That's how this ends." As he stood, the lights flickered in the storage unit. The air felt charged. Maxwell looked around at the scattered remnants of the life he never knew and the legacy he would now defend at all costs. Behind him, Lucy appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "You found Mom's stuff." He knelt and opened the box of photos, holding one up. "She looks like you." Lucy nodded. "She was smart. Grandma said she could read computers like books. So can you?" He said gently. "Will we go back to foster care?" she asked suddenly, the vulnerability raw in her voice. Maxwell shook his head. "No. You're coming home with me." She hesitated, then stepped forward and placed something in his hand, a folded sheet of notebook paper with careful handwriting. "Mom used to say if something's broken, you have to look closer to fix it." He opened it. At the top, in Charlotte's neat script, were the words, "If I ever disappear, this is what you need to know." And beneath that, a map of names, dates, file paths, a secret investigation. Proof His daughter had started unraveling the empire's corruption before she died, and now Maxwell would finish it, even if it meant tearing his world apart. The elevator glided to the top floor of Donovan Technologies, its ascent unnaturally quiet. As if the building itself were holding its breath, Maxwell stood alone inside, the fingerprint-secured drive in one hand, Charlotte's handwritten map in the other. Her voice echoed in his mind, not the sound of her voice, which he'd never known, but the words she left behind. If I disappear, this is what you need to know. The elevator doors opened with a whisper, his office a monument of glass, steel, and precise emptiness felt colder than usual. The skyline sprawled before him, Seattle bathed in steel-colored clouds. Below, the world moved on in its efficient indifference. But everything Maxwell thought he knew had shattered. Charlotte hadn't just been a genius. She had been a sentinel warning him from beyond the grave. He placed the hard drive on the desk and stared at the small DNA reader. Come on, he muttered. He pressed his thumb to the scanner. Nothing. He tried again. Still red. Then it hit him. The encryption wasn't for him. It was for her child. Moments later, he was in the car again, storming across the city to the penthouse. Lucy was sitting on the floor surrounded by books, organizing them alphabetically by author. Do you remember a drive your mom had? He asked gently, small, blue, with a silver top. She nodded slowly. She called it her brain. I think it needs you. Back in his office, Lucy pressed her small thumb against the scanner. There was a quiet click. Then a green glow. The drive unlocked. Maxwell inhaled sharply. The screen came alive with folders, dozens of them, each one labeled meticulously, Project, Ember, Private Logs, Neurosoft Clinical Data, Charlotte's Journal. But it was a final folder buried deep, named simply DT_security_breach, that seized his attention. Maxwell opened it. Video logs, source code analysis, calendar anomalies, internal emails rerouted through ghost servers, financial ledgers masked as charity contributions. At the center of it all, Margaret Donovan, Alan Weiss, Operation Omega. It wasn't just corporate espionage. It was systematic theft, intellectual property siphoned over years, files from Neurosoft, AI models from Maxwell's R&D teams, insider trading on acquisition targets. Maxwell leaned forward, jaw tightening. Charlotte had uncovered everything, and the deeper he clicked, the darker it got. One folder stopped him cold. Charlotte_final_redacted. Inside, a video file. He pressed play. Elizabeth's hospital room. Charlotte stood in frame, tall, poised, her eyes burning with clarity. If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it. Maxwell gripped the arms of his chair. I tried, Dad. I really did. But your mother, she's not what she pretends to be. I have proof. I'm sending this to both Neurosoft's board and Donovan Technologies Ethics Committee. But if something happens to me, this video is the truth. She knows I know. And I think she's capable of more than theft. Maxwell's breath caught. I'm scared. Not just for myself, but for my daughters. If I die and it's ruled an accident, don't believe it. Don't let her raise them. And please, find me. Find the part of me I never got to give you. The video ended with a tear slipping down her cheek. It struck him harder than any financial blow he'd ever taken. Because Charlotte had tried. She had warned everyone, and they had let her fall into silence. His intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice, hesitant. Mr. Donovan, the FBI is downstairs. He stood. Send them up. A moment later, the agents stepped into the office, their coats dripping from the Seattle drizzle. Special Agent Rivera, the taller one, said, "We've received formal documentation from your counsel about an internal espionage ring. We have a warrant for Alan Weiss." Maxwell handed her the drive. "Everything's here. And your mother, she's next." Agent Rivera met his eyes. "You understand that if your daughter's accident turns out to be a murder, this becomes a federal homicide investigation." "I understand," Maxwell said, his voice ablaze. Meanwhile, across the city in a brownstone townhome in Queen Anne, Margaret Donovan was already preparing her next move. Her attorney sat across from her. "The visitation petition is weak without standing, but we can argue that Maxwell's emotional state makes him a destabilizing guardian. The board is still divided. I built this company," Margaret hissed, "brick by brick while my son ran around chasing ideas and broken women. We can push a motion to the board to vote for permanent removal, leverage his recent absences, cast doubt. introduced the idea that he's using company resources for personal vendettas. Margaret's eyes narrowed. It's not a vendetta. It's correction. Her phone lit up. Alan Wise thought she answered sharply. Did you fix the paper trail? Too late. Wise said. He found Charlotte's drive. I think he handed it off. Margaret's hands froze mid-gesture. I suggest you get ahead of this. Wise continued, voice flat. Before the feds do. You coward. She spat, but the call had already ended. Outside her window, a black SUV parked across the street. FBI. They were coming. Back at the penthouse, Lucy and Lily were curled up on the couch. Maxwell knelt in front of them, heart pounding. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice shaking. Your mom, she was extraordinary. She built something that will help people. And she was trying to protect you even after she was gone. The girls nodded, as if they'd known that all along. Is the mean lady going to jail? Lily asked softly. Don Maxwell hesitated. Maybe for a long time. Good, Lucy said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. Maxwell's phone buzzed again. Rachel, he answered. Tell me. She's gone, Rachel said. Margaret packed up and vanished. FBI missed her by 15 minutes, but they've frozen her assets. Airports are flagged. She won't get far. Maxwell felt a flicker of satisfaction, but also dread. His mother didn't run, unless she had something worse planned. He stood, looking out over the Sound, the water churning in the gray light. He thought of Charlotte, of what she'd uncovered, of what she'd feared. He thought of the girls, and what it would mean if he failed them. Then he thought of what Elizabeth had whispered in that hospital bed. She'll try to take them too. He wasn't just fighting for truth anymore. He was fighting for survival. And Margaret Donovan hadn't lost yet. She was just getting started. The boardroom at Donovan Technologies was uncomfortably warm that morning. Despite the building's precision climate control, the air itself seemed to anticipate blood. 12 board members sat in stiff-backed chairs around the table's sleek obsidian surface. At the head sat Margaret Donovan, statuesque in navy silk, exuding the polished calm of someone used to victory. She tapped a Mont Blanc pen against her tablet once, twice, then stilled it. Across from her, Maxwell entered in silence, dressed not in his usual tailored gray, but a sharp black suit with no tight funeral attire. For who or what, no one was certain. Maxwell, Margaret said, not rising. We weren't sure you'd attend your own deposition. He said nothing. He slid a folder across the table. Instead, Rachel entered behind him, her face unreadable, followed by a man in a charcoal blazer. He wore no badge, but his presence radiated federal. Who is this? Margaret asked, tone clipped. Special Agent Rivera, the man said. White-collar crimes division. We're here in observance only for now. Margaret paled slightly, but masked it well. I wasn't aware this was a criminal proceeding. It isn't, Maxwell said. Yet, he took his seat slowly, carefully, like a predator lowering into a crouch. Before we get to the vote on my removal, he continued, I'd like to submit some new evidence into record. He pressed a button. The lights dimmed. A projection filled the far wall. Lines of code. Financial transactions. Then Charlotte's video. If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it. The room froze. Margaret's hand clenched, so hard her pen snapped in half. I found evidence of an internal breach at Donovan Technologies. It traces back to the people, Alan Weiss, and Margaret Donovan. A murmur rippled through the room. Margaret stood abruptly. This is inadmissible. This is your granddaughter, Maxwell cut in, speaking from beyond the grave. After you lied to her, just like you lied to me, board member Sophia Chen leaned forward. Is this legitimate? Rachel handed out sealed copies of forensic analysis. We verified the metadata, time-stamped, IP locked, location encoded, from Charlotte's Neurosoft office. And you'll find attached the contracts she submitted to the DT legal team that were never acknowledged. Maxwell stood now. The full storm of his presence filled the room. I had a daughter, he said, voice hard but low. Brilliant, brave. And you hid her from me. You killed my chance to know her. And when she built something to save lives, you stole it. You buried it. Margaret opened her mouth, but the words refused to come. You told me she left. He continued. Told her I didn't want her. You intercepted her letter. Stood between a father and daughter with nothing but malice and ambition. She was a threat to you. He spat, because she was proof that I could build something without you. Margaret's eyes finally narrowed, and now you're grandstanding. Because you think a sob story can erase the last 30 years? No. He said, but maybe it'll finally show these people who you really are. He clicked again. A second video played. Footage from a dash cam, a mechanic shop. An older man's voice, unsteady. Lady said don't ask questions. Told me to check the brakes. Said they've been sticking. Paid me double. Wouldn't give her real name. But it was Margaret. Had a voice like crushed glass. I'll never forget it. Gasps. Someone dropped their water bottle. Margaret reached for her tablet, but Agent Rivera stepped between. You're not leaving. He said, Ms. Donovan, you're being detained for questioning regarding corporate espionage and potential conspiracy to commit manslaughter. You have the right to remain silent. Maxwell turned away as they cuffed her. She didn't protest, didn't beg. She just stared at him dead eyes, decades of fury burning behind them. You think you've won? She hissed. I didn't win, Maxwell said. Charlotte did. By noon, the board had voted unanimously to reinstate Maxwell indefinitely. Rachel was promoted to co-CEO to stabilize public perception. But none of it mattered as much as what came next. That afternoon, Maxwell picked up the girls from school himself. They were waiting near the oak tree that had become their ritual spot. Lucy saw him first and gave a little wave. She tried to take us again, didn't she? Lucy asked. Yes, Maxwell admitted, and she failed again. Lily stared at the sidewalk. Is she gone forever? He thought of Margaret being loaded into a federal SUV, wrist in cuffs. Let's say she won't be coming for dinner. They walked home hand in hand. That night, the girls tucked into their new beds. Maxwell sat at Charlotte's desk, her real desk from storage, now set up in his office exactly as she'd arranged it. He placed her framed photo beside the monitor, then connected the final piece of her code to Donovan Technologies network. Project Ember blinked. Online. Diagnostics. Ran. Neural nets aligned. The algorithm predicted early onset pancreatic risk in 3 out of a test group of 30. Early enough to save them. He smiled through tears. She did it. They did it. His phone buzzed. Rachel. You did it, she said. The investors are calling. Medical journals are asking for interviews. Neurosoft will be the centerpiece of next quarter's showcase. No, he said. Charlotte will. He ended the call and walked quietly to the girls' room. Lucy was asleep, her cheek pressed against a math workbook. Lily had fallen asleep mid-sketch, her paper filled with clouds and hearts and little robots. He kissed them both gently. Then he turned out the light. A voice echoed in his mind. Elizabeth's. Fading but sure. Don't waste another 30 years. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered. The storm had passed, but the air still hummed with thunder that had yet to fall. Because legacies aren't built from stock portfolios or quarterly reports. They're built from promises kept, from daughters found, from monsters faced, from monsters defeated. And from the unwavering decision to love harder even when the world doesn't deserve it. Tomorrow, the world would know Charlotte Anderson's name. Tonight, Maxwell Donovan simply stood watch, a father, a grandfather, a man reborn.